It's a very important occasion that we've always commemorated over the years. I think because of time constraint, we are not going to take so much time because already we are late. So I would like to move straight away to the agenda of the day. Our first speaker for the day. Initially, we had planned 7 minutes, but I would request that you try and take a maximum of 5 minutes, if that will be well with you. And then we also agreed that when your time is about to be up, we'll be alerting you maybe a minute or two before to summarize. So I would like to take this opportunity to welcome the Director NDOC, at least to give us some opening remarks.
Thank you, Lamek.
Thank you and welcome.
Distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen, the International Day for Disaster Risk Reduction was started in 1989 after a call by the UN General Assembly for a day to promote a global culture of risk awareness and disaster reduction. In 2009, the UN General Assembly officially designated 13th October as the date to commemorate the day. The day celebrates how people and communities around the world are reducing the exposure to disasters and raising awareness about the importance of reining in the risks that they face. Here in Kenya, we have commemorated the day in the last 6 years in the following locations: in 2014, Baringo County; in 2015, Narok County; in 2016, the commemoration should be held in Kisumu County, Vihiga County, or Kakamega County. A choice was to be made. However, fate played a cruel hand on us through the emergence of the deadly COVID-19 virus in late 2019. Therefore, it was decided to commemorate the International Day for Disaster Risk Reduction 2020 through a virtual meeting due to the high risks related to the spread of the COVID-19 pandemic, which is still severely impacting the country. The 2020 target. In 2016, the UN Secretary General launched the Sendai 7 campaign to promote each of the 7 targets over 7 years. Hence, the 2020 target is Target E, which is substantially increase the number of countries with national and local disaster risk reduction strategies by 2020, which lays the foundation for the implementation of the Sendai framework and is closely linked with Priority for Action 2, which is strengthening disaster risk governance to manage disaster risk. In conclusion, as stakeholders in the disaster risk management sector, this is our day, and we should commemorate it as designated by the UN General Assembly. In view of this, we have prepared an elaborate agenda for this virtual meeting. I will now call on our Master of Ceremony for this virtual meeting, Mr. Lamek Abrahams of the Ministry of Water, Sanitation and Irrigation, to steer us through the rest of the agenda. Thank you, distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen. Lamek?
Lamek, you are muted.
Hello, are you getting me?
Yes, now.
Okay, thank you very much. I would like us now to move to the next part of our agenda, whereby I'll call upon Mr. Dimachi Sharon to present for us the speech by the Secretary General of the United Nations.
Yeah, thank you very much, moderator, for this morning. I will present the remarks of the Secretary General for the UN on behalf of the UN Resident Coordinator in Kenya. I hope you can hear me well.
Yes, we can.
Okay, very good, thank you. On behalf of the UN Secretary General, and I'm quoting him verbatim, the COVID-19 pandemic has brought renewed attention to the importance of strengthening disaster risk reduction. Many countries are facing multiple crises simultaneously. We will see more of this. Extreme weather events, have risen dramatically over the past 2 decades, yet we have seen little progress on reducing climate disruptions and environmental degradation. Bad situations only get worse without good disaster risk governance. Disaster risk isn't the sole responsibility of local and national authorities. COVID-19 has shown us that systematic risk requires international cooperation. Good disaster risk governance means acting on science and evidence, and that requires political commitment at the highest level to deliver on the Sustainable Development Goals and the Sendai framework for disaster risk reduction, to eradicate poverty and reduce the impacts of climate change. We must place the public good above all other considerations. For these reasons and more, this year's International Day for Disaster Risk Reduction is all about strengthening disaster risk governance to build a safer and more resilient world. I end the quote. And just to add also my own personal remarks and those of the UN in Kenya, I would really like to reiterate the fact what the UN Secretary General just mentioned. If you look at Kenya, like many other countries, we have experienced an increase in the frequency and impacts of disaster over the past 2 decades. In 2020 alone, we are seeing the country has experienced triple threats. We have seen floods, which have claimed some lives. We have seen disaster, the desert locusts, and these have also impacted on our economies, on the communities who remain affected. And we have the COVID-19 pandemic, which is a global pandemic, but has really affected us and has compounded, including Kenya. So to overcome these extreme shocks, strengthen resilience and livelihood of those who are affected, we need a more holistic disaster risk reduction governance, which takes into account a whole of government, a whole of society approach, encompassing all stakeholders across the board, from the UN, from the non-government organization, international NGOs, the CSOs, the local communities, those who are affected. We need to bring together on the table development partners so that we sit and brainstorm, ensure that we have a holistic approach to responding, to addressing the disaster challenges. This will help us to fast track the progress and achievement towards the Sustainable Development Goals so that no one is left behind. I would like to commend the government of Kenya for the ongoing efforts, at least looking at policies and strategies. Now we are looking at the disaster risk management, the bill, which is under review. It is my prayer and hope that as we work together, that we move this quickly to be able to have a more holistic response and respond to these ongoing challenges. Thank you very, very much.
Lamek, unmute yourself, please.
Yeah, thank you very much, Madam, for such a wonderful presentation. Allow me now to go to the setting of the scene and the status of the DRM in the country. Once again, I call upon Colonel Retired Owino, the Director NDOC. Please welcome.
Thank you, Lamek. Distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen, I would first like to define 2 important terms that will be key to our discussion. That is disaster risk governance and disaster risk management. Disaster risk governance is defined as the system of institutions, mechanisms, policy, and legal frameworks and other arrangements to guide, coordinate, and oversee disaster risk reduction and related areas of policy. Disaster risk management, on the other hand, is defined as the application of disaster risk reduction policies and strategies to prevent new disaster risk, reduce existing disaster risk, and manage residual risk, contributing to the strengthening of resilience and reduction of disaster losses. Currently, our legislative and institutional framework on disaster risk management is fragmented, uncoordinated, and many of the institutional mandates overlap. Aside from the National Disaster Response Plan, there's no single or series of laws or regulations pertaining specifically to disaster risk management, but rather a series of sectoral acts, regulations, and rules that support disaster risk management. The government of Kenya acknowledges that its development gains are under threat from increasing natural and human-induced disasters. An estimated 3 to 4 million Kenyans are affected annually by disasters that disrupt livelihoods and draw back gains achieved in human development. For example, while the cost of floods is estimated at 5.5% of the gross domestic product of Kenya every 7 years, droughts cost an estimated 8% of the gross domestic product loss every 5 years. It is therefore important that we engender coordination of disaster risk management by putting in place a strong policy, legal, and institutional framework for DRM at the national and county levels. Let's now look at the progress of disaster risk governance. This is as follows. A, disaster risk management policy. The Disaster Risk Management Policy 2017 that was approved by the Cabinet in mid-2018 has been revised through a multi-stakeholder approach in the last 1 year, and it is now awaiting approval by the Cabinet. 2, the Disaster Risk Management Bill. The draft Government DRM Bill 2018 has also been revised through a multi-stakeholder approach and is now awaiting approval by the Cabinet. The main change reflected in the draft Government DRM Bill 2020 is the deletion of references to formation of a National Disaster Risk Management Authority. Key inclusions in subject bill are now as follows. A National Disaster Risk Management Council. This will be the highest DRM organ. It will be chaired by His Excellency the President, who will be deputized by the Deputy President. 2, a National Disaster Risk Management Technical Committee. This will be the second highest DRM organ. It will be chaired by the PS responsible for disaster risk management. 3, a Directorate of Disaster Risk Management. This directorate will be under the ministry for the time being responsible for disaster risk management. It will be headed by a Director General who will be recruited competitively by the Public Service Commission. The Directorate will provide the Secretariat to the National Disaster Risk Management Council and the National Disaster Risk Management Technical Committee, respectively. 4, a National Disaster Risk Management Fund will be formed through the PFM Act 2012, and this is already in progress through efforts by the Treasury and Planning. 5, a County Disaster Risk Management Committee to be chaired by the Governor and co-chaired by the County Commissioner. 6, a Sub-County Disaster Risk Management Committee to be chaired by the Sub-County Administrator and co-chaired by the Deputy County Commissioner. And 7, a Ward Disaster Risk Management Committee to be chaired by the Ward Administrator and co-chaired by the Assistant County Commissioner. We also have a revised National Response Plan 2020. This revised plan has been prepared and validated and ready for use. We also have a National Disaster Risk Management Strategy. This preparation, the preparation of this strategy has been initiated, and a core team composed of personnel, officers from the NDOC and the National Disaster Risk Reduction Platform will be key to preparing it, and the strategy will be completed before 30th September 2021. We will be speaking to members of the National Platform for Disaster Risk Reduction in the next 1 week on this issue of the National Disaster Risk Management Strategy. The other one is the updating of the National Risk Reduction Strategy for Kenya, 2006-2016. For those who did not know, we actually have this strategy, the National Disaster Risk Reduction Strategy for Kenya, 2006-2016. The updating of this strategy will be done in concert with the preparation of the National DRM strategy and will be completed before 30th September 2021. The other one is the National Disaster Risk Reduction Action Plan 2019-2022. This was already prepared by the National Platform for DRR and will be signed together with the other documents by the PS interior. The other one is we have an updated methodology for preparing county multi-hazard risk profiles. This methodology was prepared in concert or through the efforts of all the stakeholders and a consultant called Nippon Koei Africa. This methodology has been prepared and has been validated. The other document that has been prepared is a guidance note for preparing county emergency operations plans / contingency plans. This guidance note has been validated and shared with the counties. As I'm speaking to you now, the counties have been advised to use this guidance note and the matrix for implementation of the preparation so that they are able to complete the preparation by September 30th, 2021. And lastly, the compilation of country data in respect of targets A to G of SFDRR through the Sendai Framework Monitor will begin in early November 2020. In the very near future, when all the documents listed above will have been formally approved and put in use, our disaster risk governance status will be very near the required level, thereby making national and county DRM operations quicker, more effective, and efficient. In conclusion, I would like to say that good governance needs to be transparent, inclusive, collective, and efficient to reduce existing disaster risks and avoid creating new ones. Thank you, distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you very much, Director, once again. I would like to congratulate you. I've noted that you've really kept time. Allow me now to welcome Mr. Adan Mohammed, Chief Officer for the Special Programs, to talk on behalf of the ASALs, and the issue that we expect to be addressed should be the triple threat in the ASAL areas, that is the locusts, the floods, and the COVID pandemic. Welcome, Adan Mohammed. Adan, we are not getting you. Hello?
We can't hear you.
We can't hear you, Adan. Hello? We are not able to get you, Adan. So in that case, I will suggest that as you sort out the communication with your gadget, maybe you give us a bit of time. We go to the representative of the COG, then after that we'll get back to you. Yeah, I hope that is in order. Okay, thank you very much. Now, I would like to call upon the representative of the COG, at least to tell us something on the coordination and governance at the county level. Welcome, our COG representative.
Lamek, I don't think we managed to get a candidate for that. If you look at the agenda we circulated late in the evening yesterday, maybe you could go to the next speaker. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. Did we manage to get, oh, Saranduku is with us?
Yes.
Thank you. Then allow me to give her the opportunity now to make a presentation on behalf of the Red Cross, on the perspective of the existing tools for DRM. Kindly welcome, Madam Saranduku.
Thank you for that, Lamek. So my name is Saranduku and I work for the Kenya Red Cross, and I will be talking a bit about the laws and policies that we have in Kenya and talking about how we can strengthen the existing laws and policies to enhance disaster risk management in the attainment of Target E from the Sendai framework, as has been very well mentioned by Colonel Owino. So I'll start by mentioning that Kenya Red Cross has been supporting the development of disaster risk management laws and policies, both at the national and at the county level. At the county level, we've been working with, we're currently working with around 38 counties to develop their laws, policies, and strategies on disaster risk management. In order to do this, we've been supporting the development of a holistic approach we've been taking a holistic approach in the development of these laws and policies that makes sure that the laws and policies are interlinked with the annual development plans and budgets, as well as the county integrated development plans, just to make sure that the implementation of these plans and strategies is well coordinated, as well as making sure that these laws and policy also have implementation frameworks that break down the goals and the strategies that have been highlighted in the laws and policies, from the very high level laws and policies to more lower level actionable things that can be implemented and measured on a day-to-day basis. The way that we're proposing to support disaster risk management governance in the country is, first of all, by increasing the linkages between disaster risk reduction laws, as well as other complementary laws, such as the laws that touch on use of the environment and natural resources, laws that touch on climate change. In our development of laws and policies in the country, we have found that these laws usually are siloed and fall within separate ministries. I can give an example of the climate change laws. Most of them fall under the Ministry of Environment, both at the national and at the county level, while the disaster risk management laws fall under the Ministry of Interior at the national level. And at the county level, they fall within, most of the time, the Department of Special Programs. And there isn't a lot of overlap between the implementation and the resourcing for these laws, even though 90% of the disasters that we are experiencing in the country are being caused by climate change. And many of them are linked to natural resources such as rivers. Let's think about floods and droughts, or forests or wildlife. And because of this, there has to be a coherent approach in the making of laws and policies, so that we can strengthen risk reduction governance, not just from the perspective of the reduction of disaster risks, but also from climate governance, and also increased use of the environment and environmental management, and even at times the restoration of these natural resources that we're utilizing. Another gap that we have found, which is an opportunity for us to enhance our disaster risk management governance in the country, is on enhancing the role of preparedness in the laws, policies, and disaster risk reduction strategies that we're developing throughout the country. And this can be done by increasing the use of climate information and forecasts, even in our plans and strategies, so that even before you get into your annual development planning or budgeting for the year, you first get in touch with the Kenya Meteorological Department and understand what the forecast for that year or that season is going to look like, so that you're allocating resources for disaster risk management or developing strategies for disaster risk management that are in tandem with the climate information and the forecast that has been given for that season. And that will ensure that we are doing adequate planning for disaster risk reduction across the country. Another thing that we have found to be an opportunity for us to work on in disaster risk management governance is strengthening the roles of communities in disaster risk reduction. And this can be done by using the participatory approaches to disaster risk reduction. Part of the strategies that can be used to increase participation in disaster risk reduction is like the community managed disaster risk reduction committees, which can be created at the sub-county level, they can be created at the ward level, and even at the village level. And these committees can be the ones who are doing the immediate response for smaller levels of disasters, especially at the sub-county level and at the ward level, so that these committees are activated to do disaster risk preparedness, disaster risk response, even before the higher levels such as the county and the national level get involved, so that the communities are able to prioritize their own interventions for disaster risk reduction and also determine what kind of risks are a priority for them and develop their own strategies to reduce the risks that are facing their communities. Another opportunity for us to strengthen disaster risk reduction governance is also increasing the use of evidence in policy making. Many of our counties, especially at the county level, we're not generating enough county-specific data that can enhance evidence-based policy making, so that instead of just making policies based on the approaches that we've been using year in, year out, we are able to generate evidence that can be used to even reshape the focus or the work that we want to do in development of laws, policies, and strategies for DRR based on the evidence that we're generating. An example could be using climate science to determine how frequently disaster risks are increasing. So if droughts were happening every 7 years, like traditionally used to be, climate science is now showing us that the frequency of occurrence of droughts in the country has reduced to close to every 3 years. And this is the kind of information that can be used to influence the kind of laws, policies, and strategies that we're using or that we're making in disaster risk reduction. And finally, funding must follow responsibilities. Without adequate allocation of funding for disaster risk reduction, in especially the laws that we're making, then it's very difficult to implement many of the strategies and the policies that we're developing on disaster risk reduction. And this can be, the policies and the strategies could be very good in their idea, but if they're not well resourced, and if the resources are not easily accessible, because especially disasters have a very short turnaround time, within 48 hours, you should be able to access the adequate funding so that you can be able to respond adequately to a disaster once it hits. Then you're not able to do the actions that you have highlighted in your laws, policies, and strategies. So there must be adequate funding first, and the flexibility to access this funding should be made so as the funding can be accessed within very short lead times to respond especially to the sudden onset disasters like flood, so that when even a flood warning has been issued, preparedness actions can be instituted, such as moving people to higher ground, or clearing drainages, or setting up facilities that can be used by the communities for response. And this can only be done if funding is flexible and is sufficient for disaster risk reduction. So in closing, the Kenya Red Cross is still very much ready and willing to support both the national and the county governments to strengthen their disaster risk reduction governance and ensure that the laws and policies that are being developed in a bid to improve governance for disaster risk reduction meets both our national and international set laws and criteria for disaster risk reduction, as well as bringing on board the evidence and the expertise that we we are able to provide in the development of evidence-based laws and policies. Thank you very much. Over to you, Lamek.
Thank you very much, Sarah. That was an elaborate presentation and really appreciate it. We'll have time for a few questions from the participants, but before we get there, allow me to make a small presentation on behalf of the Ministry of Water, Sanitation and Irrigation. I have a few things, especially my main concern is on what the ministry was able to do during the COVID-19 pandemic in the country. First, I would like to say that the ministry had an existing rapid response team that managed to establish and operationalize emergency water points all over the country, depending on the levels of infections that were being reported. Apart from that, there are also activities that were suspended, like the billing of consumers during that time. It was suspended, and the ministry had to take up that responsibility through its semi-autonomous government agencies spread across the country. The other thing is that the ministry enhanced the provision of water during that same period to the institutions, because you remember that we had a number of institutions for quarantining of suspected or contacts, as well as we had isolation centers for hosting those that were already confirmed to be COVID-19 positive. So the demand for water also went up, because at that point in time, you all realized that the primary protocol by the Ministry of Health was that people should wash their hands with soap or sanitize with alcohol-based sanitizers. So soap and water was found to be the most effective. Therefore, the demand for water now increased. The ministry will effectively manage to do that, and even putting extra measures like having standby water tankers to ensure that water is availed at any time, at any place where we had the COVID-19 victims. But apart from that, it was not only focusing on the isolation as well as the quarantine areas. We had to spread our wings to ensure that even the normal residential areas, which traditionally had challenges in terms of availability or accessing adequate water, the emergency supply lines were activated. And where the emergency supply lines could not reach, we still had water tankers, the water bowsers, which were supplying water all across the country, and specifically in Nairobi, having been the hotspot of the pandemic. In terms of now the administrative aspect, mainstreaming of DRM, I would say that the Ministry of Water right now has advanced so much through the Kenya Water and Climate Resilience Program, which has been undertaking projects across the country that enhance availability of water with a view to ensuring the water security. Some of the activities that the ministry has done includes construction of water ponds, construction of more dams in strategic places, as well as undertaking a serious water harvesting, the rainwater harvesting in schools. That having not been enough, the ministry has also ensured that in the relevant areas, through the Kenya Water and Climate Resilience Program, water tanks have been supplied to various communities to undertake the same, what we call roof catchment during rainy season. If I move away from that one briefly, currently we have plans that are ongoing to ensure that DRM is entrenched even up to county level by having officers working in close contact with the water offices within the counties to ensure that the issue of DRM becomes a key aspect of their operations, so that we come out of the response as was advised in the during the what do we call it, the Hyogo protocol, that we should come out of response. Lastly, I would say that the early warnings in the ministry have also been enhanced. Right now, we have a whole directorate that is dealing with research and surveillance. We're trying to look at the water tables, the amount of water that can be available vis-a-vis the growing population. All these activities put together will actually inform the direction that we are going to take in terms of ensuring water security in the country. I think with those few remarks, I would like to invite the next presenter, who in this case is the ASAL representatives. I do not know whether Adan Mohammed, you are now ready. Meanwhile, I would like also to call upon our CEO, James Oduor, to be on standby. He will be the one closing for us.
Chair, I'm around.
Thank you very much, CEO.
Can you hear me, Mr. Lamek,
close for us? I'm hearing you very well. So the word.
Thank you.
Thank you and welcome.
Is it my floor or?
It is your floor, Mohammed.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lamek. Distinguished speakers and panelists and participants. I may say good afternoon now. My name is Adan Mohammed. I'm the Chief Officer in charge of Devolution and Disaster Management, County Government of Kilifi. It's my pleasure talking on behalf of the ASAL counties on the challenges of disasters in the county. And specifically, I was told to speak about the challenges of locusts, floods, and COVID-19. Yeah, disasters from what I heard from Colonel Owino, the man I respect so much, and we work closely with NDOC, and my colleague Sarah from Red Cross. These are the people who we work very, very closely, specifically Kilifi County, in terms of disasters. And I must say the National Disaster Operations Center, Red Cross, and the partners have been instrumental to us, ASAL counties, in trying to mitigate numbers of disasters which happen in the counties. To be specific, Kilifi fortunately has not been hit by locusts, but from the discussion I had with my colleagues in the other counties, it's been one of the big things which happened in their counties. All the fodder crops have gone, then that means the livelihood is gone. The animals have nothing to feed on. It was a big challenge, but thanks to the national government and Ministry of Agriculture and the partners who came in and held the hand of the counties. And in terms of flood, I want to come to Kilifi. Historically, we had a number of disasters in the county, from drought to flood. One good thing we've done is we've tried to come together, stakeholders and the county governments, and try to see how we can mitigate this kind of disaster. Thanks to Red Cross, thanks to World Vision, thanks to Plan and all other organizations in the county, we formed something called County Steering Group, which I chair, and our secretary is National Drought Management Authority. That entity helped us in a long way. We came together, the NGOs which are in the county and the spearheaded by my department, and we tried to look at which sanctions or which entity has a plan, budgets in place. And it was easy for us to coordinate amongst each other and try to understand if there is an NGO in the county, what is it that it's doing? Is it doing a child-related activity? Is it doing a wash program? Is it doing, so we try to understand each other in the county, what we are doing. And in that, we try to apportion what is it that we should do and try to pull resources together and mitigate the flood. I think all of you know that through Red Cross, we were given some money to put up some shelters in the county. And one good thing I want to report to this forum is that to mitigate the flood disaster, we are able to build 1,000 houses for the people along the River Sabaki area, which is prone to flooding. And I told the communities to identify a particular place to build those houses, and through them they identified, and we've successfully built 1,000 plus houses for the victims of flood. And the success story of that building is, as this year we had a huge flood, like before, and we've never had even a single incident of people dying or animal dying because of flood. What we've done is just to use the meteorological department, National Disaster Operations Center, and Red Cross, and took those information direct to the people through a bulk SMS and told them that the river is bulk and a lot of water is coming upstream. And when we sent those alerts, our communities were able to move from around the river and went to their houses, and we had that success as we speak. So in coordinating with the stakeholders in the county, we've decided and managed to mitigate that disaster. And I think moving forward, we don't think whether we'll have a challenge of dealing with floods. But one big challenge that we have is the flooding in the county, specifically Kilifi County, is not by the rain which is happening in the county. When it rains upstream there in the around Ukambani area and Mount Kenya, that water comes down to Kilifi and to the ocean. That's why we normally have flood. But we wish to ask the national government, and specifically the Ministry of Water or Agriculture, to see how they can build mega dams upstream there. As the county, we've advised the cabinet and the management that to mitigate this flood moving forward, we're supposed to build mega dams around the river and see how we can use that water for irrigation. And that plan is in place. One other thing which helped us in mitigating a number of disasters in the county is we've managed to pass disaster acts with the county assembly has decided has managed to pass the act. We have the act in place, but one thing what we are doing right now is through our partners Red Cross and UNDP, we are trying to put and amending our policies and disaster policy in place, and that activity is ongoing right now. And as we speak, the disaster, the public participation on disaster policy is currently going on in a place called Gongoni in Magarini, thanks to the support of UNDP and the partners we have in the county. So those policies and that policy will help us in a long way. But one important factor I want to just to bring forth here to the panelists is for us to mitigate all these disasters, because disasters happen any other time, flood, earthquake, us who sit along the ocean, hurricane can happen any other time. One thing we are requesting from our partners is to see how we can build an emergency operations center. Right now, when a disaster happens, there is no coordination kind of efforts in place. What is there is fire is in Department of Transport, ambulances are in Department of Health, So what we are looking forward as a county is, and thanks to Red Cross and which they've held our hand, we've identified a building where we can put expertise and equipment in place to coordinate this kind of disasters. But what we want at the moment is to identify a building and a land somewhere and construct an emergency operations center where from there all disasters are coordinated. And one thing which probably is missing in the counties and we need to focus around there is capacity building around disasters, disaster reduction. No, I know the counties are moving ahead, but some of the ASAL counties have not put measures in place toward mitigating and reducing disaster. So to finish and to sum it all, is that I'm requesting, I know the resources are devolved. One thing which is gray at the moment is in the Schedule 4, you find that disaster is devolved to the county. One thing it's saying is disaster management. We need to understand what this disaster management is. An example, I can give you an example. 2 months ago, there was a number of schools in the Kilifi County where their roofs were blown by strong winds. And when the communities came to us at the county and asked us to help in putting those roofs up there, one thing which we did not understand so much is those are primary schools. Is it the function of county government or the national government to put up that roof on those buildings and try to see how they can mitigate that? So this is the area which we want us as a counties to be capacity built on. If a disaster happens, at what magnitude will we be rushing to national government, and at what point will the county be putting their hands into managing those kind of disasters? Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Brother Mohammed. That was an elaborate presentation, and it has actually stimulated my mind to think about a number of things that we need to share with the county. At this point in time now, allow me to welcome the CEO of NDA, Mr. James Oduor, at least to take us through the journey of DRM in the country and also tell us something on the ending drought emergency. Welcome, Mr. James.
Thank you very much, Chairman. I'll be very brief, as you mentioned earlier, because of time. So first,
because of age, we'll allow you not to be very brief. Mr. James?
Thank you.
Because of age, we won't allow you to be very brief. We won't allow you to be very brief because of age.
Thank you. I want to briefly describe EDE, why it was developed, and how it aims to reduce drought risk. And in terms of reducing drought risk, I'll mention by reducing vulnerability through stronger foundation for development, and also reducing drought risk by improving the quality of response. After that, I'll briefly describe the current position of EDE, because we are doing midterm review to see where we have come from, where we are, and where we should be heading to. And then finally, I'll mention a few practical examples of the things we are doing to help counties reduce the risk. The examples on the very things that we are doing on the ground. So first of all, Chair, EDE, as I know you know, is a commitment by the IGAD member states to end drought emergencies in the region. Also, the EDE recognizes that the impacts of drought can be very high. We did a post disaster needs assessment, just to look at the impacts, the losses and damages of the 2008-2011 drought. And what we came up with was total loss of US dollars 12.1 billion in 3 years. You can see how the cost can be very big. And the EDE, it was endorsed by the Kenya cabinet in 2012 as a strategy for the country to end drought emergencies. It has now been integrated into the government planning and budgeting process so that the activities can be budgeted for. And this planning and budgeting process, it is part of Vision 2030. When EDE was starting, we're in MTP2, 2013-2017. Now we are in MTP3, 2018-2020. And also it's been integrated in the county integrated development plans, 1 and also 2. And finally, EDE has been endorsed by development partners, and the development partners have then set up a SAL development partner group. And this is where, as development partners, they coordinate their own activities towards EDE, and then they also coordinate the activities with the government activities on EDE. Now, let me mention briefly how EDE focuses on reducing disaster risk. And as I mentioned, first of all, number 1 is in reducing vulnerability, and in reducing vulnerability through stronger foundations for development, because vulnerability actually is a developmental issue. It is a poverty issue. It's incapacity of the communities to deal with the situation. So the EDE looks at the foundations for development, for example, peace and security, as a big pillar. And if you go in peace and security, if you have to unpackage, then there are so many issues there. The EDE also looks like climate-proof infrastructure. I didn't want to bring individual elements to take a lot of time, but again, climate-proof infrastructure, if you are to unpack it, you have so many things: the roads, the water, the health, the agriculture. Another foundation for development is human capital. And here we have education, we have health and nutrition, and finally we have sustainable livelihoods. And sorry, I forgot that in climate-proof infrastructure, there are so many things, and also sustainable livelihoods. And livelihoods are also many. You have crops, you have livestock, you have employment, you have emerging livelihoods. So it looks at all this. In terms of timely and appropriate response, again, EDE focuses on several areas. First, it is the early warning information. You need to know that something bad is coming. The information must be timely, and the information must be credible to enable you prepare. Then we complement that by doing food security assessments and other rapid assessments to give us more information on what exactly has happened at the household and what's need to be done. Then we prepare now to take action, and to prepare to take action, we have drought contingency plans, response plans that will say the situation will be like this, what needs to be done is like this, so and so will do this at this level, the budget will be like this, and so on and so forth. And then also coordination of response at national and country levels. And also in terms of timely and appropriate response, we need resources to do the response. And this is why we are creating funds such as National Drought Emergency Fund. We also have scalability cash transfers, so that apart from planning and apart from knowing whatever is coming, then we can also practically respond on the ground because we have the money. The other issue I wanted to mention, Chairman, is we are now reviewing the EDE MTR, and we're going to start in November. And this review is very important for us because it will guide us on whether we continue with the same strategy, whether we change tactics, the areas that need emphasis as we go along, the areas that need value addition, and also so on and so forth. It will also inform future programming and priorities for disaster risk reduction and resilience building. And this MTR, we are doing it through multi-stakeholder technical and financial support from various partners and sectors. My appeal to our colleagues in this meeting and other stakeholders is that you should feel encouraged to participate at national and also county levels. And finally, Mr. Chairman, I want to mention briefly how NDMA supports the counties to reduce disaster risks through specific projects that we do on the ground. I want to say that NDMA is a national authority, but we work in a way that directly supports or add value to the county governments. We don't duplicate, we don't take over, but we support the priorities of the counties, what is in the CIDPs and others. We have offices in 23 ASAL counties. And some of the actions that we take on the ground to reduce the risk, you know, like cash transfers, hunger safety net, cash given to the most vulnerable and the poorest households. We also do a lot of investments in the various projects, water, crops, livestock, and so many other things. We also work closely with organizations like WFP to do asset creation, things that communities prepare for themselves as assets, and then those assets reduce their vulnerability and the risk. And there are many. You could have boreholes, you could have irrigation schemes, you could have water pans. There are also things that we do with UNDP, including asset creation, including capacity building, including the issues of cash transfers, and all these things. So, Chairman, briefly, that's what I have. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to share this story with my colleagues. Asante sana.
Thank you very much, our CEO, James Tudur. It has been an honor to be with you at the same platform. I'm feeling so enriched by the information that you've just delivered. At this point, Julius, I do not know whether you're still there, Kabubi.
Yes, I'm there, Ramek.
Yeah, so I'm looking at our program, and we are supposed to be having a wrap-up by UNDP. What is not coming out clearly that I just wanted a bit of guidance is that can we have a few questions, then after that we do a wrap-up, or we prefer to do a wrap-up before the question time?
I think if you can take one or two questions, then we can be able to say a few words, and then we'll leave it. We give it back to you to close the meeting.
Oh, thank you very much. Okay, the honorable distinguished participants, I would like to give the opportunity right now to at least 3 people with some burning questions. If there is anyone.
Dimitri, can I actually somebody?
Yeah, any questions out there?
Yeah, maybe I can put one to James.
There are raised hands. There are raised hands. Judy Wambogo has her hand raised and Farah Asindua.
Okay, thank you very much. Let's have Judy Wambogo coming in first.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
Thank you for those speakers who've spoken through the last session for the last 1 hour. So starting with the presentation by Colonel Owino in terms of the bill and the structure that's currently being proposed. It looks like a very heavy structure, and so the question is, I mean, beginning from the council to a technical committee to a directorate to the county level, sub-county, ward level, what is the government strategy in terms of financing the tiered structure? So that's the first question. And then the second question is on James Odur has made a presentation about EDE and the fact that they're going into a midterm review because EDE is part of the MTP3. DRM is also one of the areas that was included in the MTP3. So what are the plans to undertake a midterm review so that then we can be able to see what have we achieved that we had set out to do in 2018 and what's remaining and why and what can be done to ensure that that we achieve that. So with that, I think I will leave it at those 2 questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Farah? Farah, I understand your hand was up.
Thank you. I would like to thank the speakers. I have 3 points, and the first one is from Colonel Owino's presentation. He talked about the structures, or that are in the bill or the policy, the DRM policy, or in the bill. And when we look at some of these structures, like the DRM fund is already being implemented or in the process of being developed. And my question would be about the structures at the county level. Currently, we have various structures at the county level.
Sorry to butt in, Farah. We can barely hear you. Can you speak closer to the mic, please?
Okay, sorry about that. Can you hear me now?
Yes, much better.
Yeah. So from Colonel Owino's presentation, he spoke about various structures that are to be implemented, and some of them are already in the process of being implemented, like the DRM fund that is being steered by the Ministry of Planning and Treasury. My question would be the county structures. Currently, we have different structures at the counties. We have, in the ASAL areas, we have the county steering groups, and in the other counties, we have the disaster management committees. So my question would be, where are these committees likely to be streamlined so that we are speaking from one point when you're talking about disaster risk management committees in the county? And if so, when? Because I think it has been like a problem, especially.
Hello, we can't hear.
The county structures of disaster management, according to the bill or the policy, requires streamlining. And is this something that NDOC is likely to take up because there's disharmony in the structures at the county level? Then the second point is on Adan's presentation. He talked about capacity building and in the counties, and this is not a question really, but it's an emphasis also from Duku's presentation that there's a lot of capacity building that is required at the county level, you know, since disaster was devolved to a certain extent. So there's a lot of capacity building that is required. And if this can be taken up by all stakeholders from the national and to work closely with county government.
Okay, thank you very much, Para. An opportunity for the last question, possibly. Any hand up?
Wafula's hand is up.
Okay, welcome, Wafula.
Thank you very much. And I really appreciate the presentations by all the speakers. I was just curious, again, this is just curiosity. Though I didn't hear mention of the private sector as a major player in all these activities, all these plans. And I was thinking that in many ways, the private sector could provide capital, if nothing else. But maybe also we, as private sector, we are probably the biggest consumers and the biggest victims when there are disasters, because we can't do business. So I'd just like to know if we can somehow rope in the private sector at policy level, at legislative level, and we are quite happy to participate, to even work on these proposed policies and bills that are happening here and there. We just want the private sector not to be ignored. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Wafula. Now, allow me to take this opportunity to ask Colonel Owino to respond on the questions that have been raised towards the NDOC.
Thank you, Lamek. Can you hear me?
Very clearly.
Okay. I would first of all like to start with a question that was asked by Mr. Duncan Boyer concerning what I mentioned about disasters threatening SDGs. And because of a shortage of time, I would just like to just take on one SDG only. SDG number 6. SDG number 6, which is closely related to the SFDRR. Remember, SDG 6 talks about clean water and sanitation. And the Sendai framework for disaster risk reduction advocates for a resilient water infrastructure to remain effective and operational during and after disasters in order to provide life-saving and essential services and limit the spread of disease. Now, because of climate change and an increase in disasters that we were not experiencing before. For example, you find like in the Rift Valley region, areas around from Mai Mahiu all the way to Nakuru, you find that there's a lot of land subsidence. You find that roads are are being damaged, okay, through huge cracks and so forth. Within Nakuru town itself, you'll find entire areas with cracks, houses, cracks going through roads and houses and so forth. So you find that whatever kind of water infrastructure has been put in place will actually be damaged. Okay, you find that even in some open areas, okay, you find that water pans and other water infrastructure piping and so forth that that is out in the open, and has been put in place are actually damaged, by all these tectonic movements. So you find that in as much as the government is trying to ensure that that it puts in place resilient water infrastructure and hoping that this will be able to withstand the effects of disasters, but the number of disasters and their level is such that all this work is actually going to waste, and that's why I was saying that disasters, the number of disasters is at the moment actually reducing the effectiveness of the SDGs. What we are, what we are doing to put in place resilience within the communities in terms of provision of clean and safe water. Now, with respect to structures that will be created by the DRM Bill 2020, not interfering with with the structures put in place by NDMA in the ASAL counties. What I say, Mr. James Odoro will be able to add, to add on to this, is that the DRM Bill 2020, when it goes to Parliament, hopefully it will become an act and it will put in place all those structures. But remember that there's also an NDMA Act 2016, okay, that for it to operate has also put in place so many structures. So there'll be no conflict between the structures that will be put in place through the DRM Bill 2020 and the structures that have been put in place through the NDMA Act. Okay, they'll be complementary. You find that in fact most members who attend the CSGs in the county will also be members of the county disaster risk management committee. Okay, so they'll complement each other. There'll be no conflict. Mr. Dwar? Mr. Dwar, James?
Yes.
Please
hello, Kano.
Yes, please, can you add on to?
I didn't get you clearly. I'm not getting you, but let me say this. Hello?
Can I repeat?
Yes. Not everything just highlight, Paul.
Yeah. What I was saying is that the structures that will be created by the draft DRM Bill 2020, when it can act, will only complete the structures by the NDMA in their ASAL counties. After all, the members of the county disaster risk will also be actually members in the county steering groups and any other structures that are being created through the NDMA Act. And therefore, I don't see any conflict arising. Thank you.
No need to add. I think you have put it very, very well. If the chairman allows, then maybe I can mention something about the private sector issue.
I think, James, you can go ahead and just mention.
Okay.
Yes.
It is important, the issue of bringing private sector on board, because they have got their own skills and they have got roles to play. And I'm sure different stakeholders have attempted or work differently with the private sector. For example, in NDMA, I wouldn't say we have done much, but we are trying our best to bring the private sector in as much as possible. It is one area where we are still lagging behind, but it's one area where we are really enhancing. Just for example, we have supported some people who produce livestock feed, during drought. Even to get livestock feed at reasonable prices, at short distances becomes impossible. So in the past, we have supported some organization to produce livestock feed so that during drought, we can get supply easily at shorter distances at fair price. That one has worked very well in the past. We also have an area where we have supported value addition, private sector value addition. For example, we have sweet potato value addition plant in Meru. And this one is encouraging the communities to grow sweet potatoes as their livelihood, and then supplying them with the market. And in the same arid areas where sweet potato is appropriate crop, this one is also doing extremely well. The area you've heard of the weed, the Juliflora madenge. Madenge is a serious bad weed in most of the areas. We also supported an organization to have a building and machines, and then convert the leaves and the pods of the madenge plus other ingredients to make livestock feed. And it's also been working very well. So I'm just supporting the idea of working with private sector. For those who have not, maybe you need to think about it. For those who are doing it, like some of us, we need to enhance, but it is really a good idea. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think Madam Farah mentioned something to do with the presentation of the Red Cross. I do not know whether Sarah Nduko has got any comment, any response to what Farah mentioned. Sarah? Okay, if we have lost Sarah, then I would call upon Mr. Julius, at least.
Can I say something, please, for the point of information?
Okay, welcome.
Before that. Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Lamek, again. I think I have a question to Charles Owino. For your information, the disaster DRM bill is going to Parliament and is supposed to be enacted by Parliament. But are you aware that the counties already have disaster acts in place? How will that have a conflict with the DRM bill, which is yet to be passed by the National Assembly? The counties, most of the counties have disaster bill, which is being passed by the county assembly. Specifically to Kilifi, we have disaster acts in place. And now, as I've told you, the policy is now undergoing public participation. And with the structures you talked about, the policy we are now taking to the community and the people is creating structures from the headquarters, the county, to sub-county, to ward, and the village. How is the composition of the structures in the national government vis-a-vis our structure in the county government? Will we be pumping money right now in creating and bringing up this policy in place right now? And then when the DRM bill and the policy of the national goes through at the National Assembly, we'll come again and use another taxpayers' money to review our policy. So I want a clear understanding around this. Are you telling the counties to stop in creating the acts and policies right now until the DRM bill of the national government is in place, or counties can go ahead and do what they're doing? But at the end of the day, I am suspecting that we'll be using another money, taxpayers' money, to review our bills and our policies in place.
Thank you, Mohammed. Thank you,
yes,
Colonel.
Yes, okay, I'll just answer that. I want to answer two questions, one from Robert Murule and one from the representative from Kilifi. Yes, we understand that the counties are going ahead and preparing their own policies and actually enacting them, and bills also, policies and actually bills, they're enacting them into and making them operational. But what the policy says is that once the national DRM policy is operational, once it has been passed by Parliament, once the National DRM Act has been passed by Parliament, the bill becomes an act, then all counties will be required to revise their policies and DRM acts in order to be in line with the national documents. We recognize that that there's likely to be expenditure of cash in doing this, and therefore, so as to obviate that, our officers who have been going out have been informed, have been given all the necessary information as to what is current, so that they advise the counties when they are preparing their policies. Okay, so that what is being done now will be known to the county personnel who are actually working on their policies and bills, so that there'll be no need to actually amend anything once. Secondly, Mr. Robert Murule was concerned. He's saying that there are disasters that should be handled by county governments and others by the national government. And so he's wondering what criteria is used as to which level of government responds to what disaster emergency. Now, the criteria is this. The policy sets very clearly the levels of disasters, level 1, 2, 3, until 4. The 4 is the highest one, okay? And at level 4, you find that we have to request for international help. Level 3 is the national one, where the national government now takes responsibilities. Level 3 is the county level one, where the governor. I mean, level 2 is the county level where the governor takes action. Level 1 is the one where we have sub county and below. Okay, where you find at their level, they're able to deal with with whatever crops up. With whatever disaster at their level crops up. At the same time, you find that the DRM bill explicitly details what kind of disasters what kind of disasters the national government can but it also puts in a rider that just the fact that the county may be allowed to respond to a particular type of disaster, the national government will be able to they'll be able to talk to each other. The national government will be able to advise, and the national government will even be able to send resources to the county, irrespective of whether it is not a level that is supposed to be handled by the national government. And the counties will be able to request for help, irrespective of the fact that that is not even a level that the national government should come in to deal with. So we'll be talking to each other. We are all one country, and we want to help. Where we can, so that we can finish a crisis faster, not just going by what is written and then letting a crisis or disasters or emergency drag out for long lengths of time. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. I would like to call on Julius Kabubi now.
Okay, thank you, Ramek. This position was supposed to be taken by UNDP to give a summary of what has been discussed and perhaps also tell us what are the next steps. But I'm hoping all the information that we have shared today, the Canal's office will put it together and maybe distribute to us so that we can be able to pick it from there when we have our national platform on DRR. I think without really deliberating on this, I would like to first of all thank the presenters. We have had some very good information. We all appreciate that Kenya has its own share of disaster risk. And likewise, we have also seen that the country has developed some existing tools which can support disaster risk governance. But unfortunately, this is not happening. These tools are also existing at the county level, but the problem of coordination, both vertically and horizontally, has been highlighted as a key out doing on this. We have also had some very good lessons, like the ones of Kenya Red Cross on how we can strengthen the disaster risk governance going forward. So they are quite very beautiful lessons that we have learned. But to sum it up, I would like to all of us to leave this meeting by asking ourselves at whichever level, national and local and the county level, we need to ask ourselves, what is the level of understanding of risk? If we could be able to answer that question, then of course we'll be moving towards improving our disaster risk governance. We need to ask ourselves, what are the institutional arrangements at national, at the local level? Are they working? Are they delivering? We need to ask ourselves about legislation and policy frameworks. We need to look at the strategies and plans. Are they community friendly? Are they supporting the country to develop high resilience? We need also this question, which I've just discussed, about coordination mechanisms. All these are questions that need to be answered if we have really to address the question of disaster risk governance. The issue of capacity development has come up. The mainstreaming and integration of climate change and other, like we talked of those related disaster legislative pieces of legislations that are related. How are we mainstreaming them so that we don't do duplication and so on? We need to address the question of devolution. And I think the question that Kano has answered at the end on how the national legislation will talk to the region, to the county level legislation is a very key, important issue that we need to consider. Community participation is also very important. How are we involving the community in all this? We need also to think about financing. What investments are we putting at the national level? What finances are we putting? DRR-related finances. We need to think about accountability and so on. So we don't want to lose sight of the changing nature of risk. We have seen the COVID and the COVID-19 and its cascading impacts affecting almost all sectors. We have seen the triple threat of disasters that were in this country. So it is the high time we need really to rethink, we need to remodel ourselves, we need to repurpose and address this exponentially increasing disaster risk. So with those few remarks, Chair, if you allow me, Coordinator Mr. Lemak, I would like to maybe conclude by thanking all the presenters. Adan Mohammed, we got him at a very short duration and he had prepared very well. We had James, we had Sarah, we had and Lamek. Thank you for also the support you gave us. We want to also say thank you to all the participants, the distinguished participants. And finally, I also want to thank the Secretariat that was working towards the development of this webinar. I think it's a good webinar and we look forward that the outcome of this webinar will be put in a way that we can it can form a reference, our reference going forward. With that, I get back to you, Bona Coordinator. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Julius. That was a good summary. At this point in time, allow me just to say that I would also like to thank all the participants. And I look forward to having more such meetings. We had 1 hour and 30 minutes, and I'm happy that we have concluded with 2 minutes to go. Thank you very much, and we look forward to more.
Thank you.
Yeah, before James, you go, sorry, I forgot to mention to you that after this, for those who will be available, we have another continental webinar. The whole of Africa will be speaking on the same issue of disaster risk governance. And therefore, I take this opportunity to invite you, those who will be able to join it. I think we also shared this information with the team. Please take time if you have time to listen to what is happening in Africa. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Let's have a fruitful afternoon.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.